This is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm the living proof. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. Who the fuck are you?
Hey guys, welcome to EAF Entrepreneurial. As I am Deanna Kozak, I am your host. This is my co-host, Joel Richardson, owner of Soul Joel's Comedy Club and Lounge and Soul Joel Productions, featured on NBC 10. Mr. Big Shot, I told somebody, I don't know if your head's going to be able to fit in the club door after all this.
Hilarious, because my head's already big. So let's slow it down.
It's bigger. So you guys are listening to episode 8, I believe. We are just rolling right along. If you are listening to us live, that's great, but you don't have to listen to us live. You can download this. You can listen to it on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts. Pop in those AirPods, go for a walk when you're walking the dog, walking around the house cleaning, and give us a listen. You don't have to watch it. Download us, leave us a review. We would love it.
If you have an iPhone, it's that little purple icon that says podcasts, EAF, and then leave a 5-star review and some words. We appreciate it.
So for those of you who don't know, Joel and I are both self-employed. We've actually both been self-employed for 11 years. And we wanted to start this podcast for people that are budding entrepreneurs or anybody who just wants to get in the, look into the life of self-employed people. And we're calling it Surviving and Thriving Tips for Entrepreneurs. So every week we're going to have a different guest. And, we're going to give some tips in the beginning of the show. For every week, it's going to be like a different set of tips. So today we are going to do work-life balance, which I don't think we've really talked about yet.
No, we haven't. And it is a balance, because for this, and our guests will tell you a little bit more about that too, when you're in the entertainment business, you have to turn it off. You can't be on all the time. And being quarantined, I was been quarantined with my girlfriend and her parents. And they see me doing all these podcasts and taking on the phone. And literally one night last week, her dad went to Lindsay, was like, man, Joel's always got to be on. And it's not even like I don't always want to have to be funny because I'm in the comedy business, but it's just a matter of I have to always put my best foot forward, and, dealing with the different personalities or dealing with a customer, dealing with a venue, whatever it might be. You have to be persuasive and be charming and always, it's tough. It's mentally draining more than it is physically. People don't realize that.
Well, and you work all week, and I work with clients. So my clients are, they work 9 to 5. Sometimes they get off at night and they'll text me at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Well, right. I start working early as well, and I work all day, but then I'm still working at night. So like when you're in that client-based, customer service type of business, and for you, and as well as our guests, like you have to bring that energy. And I watch you do it even like on a Friday night. Like if you had a crap day or a Saturday night or something's going on in your life, you still have to bring that heat. Like there is no days off. So for me, that's where, eating well, exercising, starting my day off right, getting the right amount of sleep, like just that self-care. I know it sounds so cliche because you see it all over the place now. But for me, I feel like that's where that self-care piece comes in, and that's how I handle. And I also set boundaries. I used to be a maniac where as soon as somebody texted me or as soon as somebody called me, I was like, bing, bing, like I got back to them. And now it's like, you know what? I'm putting my phone down and I'm not going to look at it for the next 2 hours. Or if I go somewhere, I have 4 kids. If I go somewhere with my 4 kids, I just put it down and I look at it later. And I think in the beginning, you kind of got to grind and you have to build that foundation and learn those boundaries. But it doesn't come easily and it doesn't come right away, because while you're hustling, you do have to, build that business first. In the beginning, it's a little bit harder, but I think you've kind of learned that now as well.
Yeah. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. But in terms of like, people always respect the hustle, like we always talk about, and the fact that, we get back to people right away. But when it comes to like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, at some point you do have to turn it off, especially if you've been working all day, so by like probably my cutoff is like 10 o'clock at night is when they're probably going to get a response the next day. If it's a phone call, if it's an email or a text message, I might still answer it.
And I think that's the funniest part about it is everybody's like, oh, it must be so cool to set your own hours and be your own boss. And I'm like, if you only knew what that really took, it's a lot of hustle. And I think our guest today,
so excited
for him. It's really, I mean, just what he does for a living is really cool. Reading some articles about him, what you've told me about him, just it sounds like a really interesting personality.
You went down a couple of rabbit holes, didn't you?
I did. I tried to find, but I don't like, I feel like he's so word of mouth. Like I'm going to get into all that with him, but like, I feel like he's just so well known that he doesn't need a big online presence. So I'll let you bring him out.
Yeah. He's the DJ to the stars, our very own. We love him to death. Please welcome Gino Steaks presents DJ Perry.
I heard the Gino Steaks presents. How are you guys? Hi.
Good, man.
Deanna, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So I was just telling Joel, I tried to do as much reading, and if the person that we're interviewing has a book, I try to read it. Like I try to do as much research as possible, but I feel like you are just like a living legend as a DJ, and all your business is like referral based and it's word of mouth. And I don't feel like you need that much press or that much of an online presence. So tell me why I can't find that much information about you.
Your research was very appropriate. And when you said that, I actually was smiling over here. And it's funny. I almost want that. And what you described before I came on is exactly what I envisioned me to be. I don't want to be in people's faces. I want people to come get me. And, you know, I think when you build your brand and the talent rises, when people want to see you again and speak about you and talk about you in certain ways, and you become that business that people speak about, that then you did a good job. Sometimes, you know, and I think I tried to build that, and you really hit the nail on the head there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, because I felt like, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, this guy is like, I'm like, he's like a ghost. Like it was like your website hadn't been updated since like 2013, but like you're still crushing it. And I'm like, that's crazy. But I guess it's just so referable.
I have not updated my website since 2013. That's correct. I don't feel like I need to. Because and it's funny because I feel like websites are history. They're gone.
Yeah.
Anybody could put anything on a website. And I started to realize that. And then when I would talk to certain people that I work with that are really at a high level, and I would say to them, they'd like, it really doesn't matter anymore unless you're selling stuff from the website, which I'm not. But I think it already tells you who I am. But social media and what you're doing now is what's really important, like the Instagram and the Facebooks and Twitter, and just being out there face to face, which right now we can't do, unfortunately. But that energy that you bring to people when you meet them, that's what makes you successful.
Well, and I've been following you during this whole pandemic, and what I want to get out there in the comedy business is, I still perform, but I want people to know that I'm the one that puts the whole thing together. And I think that's what people don't know about you is not only do you DJ, but you have a production company where you might have 4 or 5 other DJ and events going on each night that you're not even at.
My business is so diverse, it would take me probably about 5 hours to tell you everything. And that was my vision to do that. You know, I could be one night opening up for Hugh Jackman, main stage, and not just the party started, but opening up. Or I could be touring with the Beastie Boys and then the next day doing a wedding. That's what my business was built on, from every day to keep going, no matter what. And it's funny because I've had guys laugh at me. Oh, you're doing an event today, a private event, huh? Laughing at me. But then the next day I'm sitting next to Lady Gaga. So it's
who's laughing now?
Yeah, but you know what? I think it doesn't matter. You need to be out there. And if we're entertainers, that's what we love to do. We like to entertain no matter what it may be. And for anybody to turn down a chance to entertain the people and to do what you love, which I do. I love what I do so much. And I thank God every day I'm blessed. But then you're crazy, because that's what we plan to do, and that's what we want to do. So that's what we do.
So tell us, I think also reading about you, the limited amount I could find, it said that you started working at age 13.
Yeah.
So is this something like, were you a DJ from age 13? Did you always see yourself doing this? Like, how did this evolve?
So I grew up in Atlantic City. And in Atlantic City, there was a street called George Avenue, which back then, old school, was called Ducktown. An old Italian saying was Ducktown, and it was a very Italian area. It was right in front of Convention Hall, which is now Convention Hall. Now it's not a very nice section, but then it was very nice. There was about 4 or 5 DJs from that actual street that became very successful. I was a young kid, 11, 12 years old, and that's what I wanted to do always. I was a big music lover. One of the guys that lived up the street, his name was Charlie Buckeye, and he worked at one of the hottest clubs in Atlantic City called the Shea. So at around 11, 12 years old, I would leave my house after parents went to sleep and everybody went to sleep. I would sneak out the back door, and I would walk about 2 miles to this nightclub, and I would sit on the step and listen to him play for about a year, maybe a year and a half. And I would hear the thumping, and I would hear the sound, and I would hear the mixes, and I'm like, what is this? I want to do this. Everybody's having a good time. There's beautiful people everywhere. There's energy. Who wouldn't want to do this? I'm like, oh my God. And I'm a music guy.
You just sat there and listened. Like, you walked 2 miles just to sit there and listen every night.
At 12 years old.
And you could have gotten caught. I mean, did you ever get caught?
It's just 3, 4 in the morning. They were open till 6 o'clock in the morning every night.
Oh my gosh.
So and this is the start. This is how it all started. So I would sit on that step, and I remember it well. And the bouncers were about maybe 30 feet away from me, letting people in, or not letting them in, depending. And I would hear the thumping, and the light man used to come in and out of that door I would sit at. And he would say, what are you doing out here? The light man's name was Sick Nick. And if you saw him, you would know why he was named Sick Nick. He was a tremendous guy. He said, kid, what are you doing? I said, I'm just listening to Charlie. I'm really enjoying this. And he goes, why don't you hold on a second? So then he comes back out. He goes, I'm gonna bring you in, but I want you to stay down, like nobody can see you, into the booth. He brings me into the booth. Big, huge DJ booth. The booth was so big back then. Of course, we had records that the DJ would go into a separate room to get his records, then come out and then play. It was huge. So I stayed down like this, and I was hiding, and I'm looking up, and I watched Charlie Buckeye, who the DJ was I was telling you about, mix the records, and I watched the crowd respond to it. And I said, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And I watched what he did. So I worked that summer at a pizza place and saved all my money on the boardwalk in Atlantic City and bought my own sound system. As Charlie Buckeye was playing on the radio, I would hear him playing. And I kept going back there, and eventually I got to know him, and eventually I got closer to him, and eventually he told me some things. And a year later, I got offered a job there to fill in.
Wow.
So this was like a couple years, like a year and a half of you sitting there and listening, year of just like saving up your money to get your own equipment. Like you really,
13 years old.
You're patient.
Yeah, I'm very I hear that a lot. Yeah. And I waited it out, and I remember roaming down. Some things you remember in life, I guess you sort of remember when you get the ideas in your head what you're going to do for the rest of your life. But I remember working at this pizza place, and there was 3 stores, and I remember having a mop over my shoulder and dancing to Dexy Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen, as I'm walking down the boardwalk, saying, and there's some things you just remember, and I say, I'm not going to be doing this much longer. I'm going to be in front of the crowd playing. And in about 2 months from then, I was, and never looked back. From the day I started working at the Shea, then I worked at their club right across the street called Saratoga, and then I just kept going. It just never stopped. Right through high school, I worked in nightclubs every night.
It's funny you talk about the energy and reaching people, and I haven't really told you this, but you're the first person that I realized during this whole pandemic that you kept posting and you were sharing. You don't only share successes, you share everything that's negative that's also happening about you, whatever's going on in your life. That it wasn't just me that was getting hit during this time in our comedy club. You were talking about, I forget what it was, 30 or 40 events that got canceled in the month of March. But then on the other scale, you were the first person I saw that you were like, I'm booking stuff into the fall and into 2021. So you made me feel good about not good about what's going on, but it's okay because everyone's getting hit by this. But then you gave me hope. and us hope, because you're like, I'm booking gigs now 6 months to a year from now. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. So I can't thank you enough for that.
You know, I hate to use the word hate and I hate to use the word anger, but I get very upset when I see people that, and this is me, because I have, if I have a problem and I have something that's wrong with me, it's that I think everybody is like me, but they're not.
Right.
And sometimes I have to really adjust myself to think like them, and you know, but when I see people only posting about what they're going through and what they're getting or not getting, and not what they can be doing for other people or as a team and helping, that bothers me.
Yeah.
And yes, when I did post about doing those, I booked 3 events in one day. I only booked maybe like 2 more after that. But I only posted that not to boast, but to make sure everybody felt like there was hope.
Yeah. And I know for me, like, even if you affected one person, that person was me, and you affected our whole team, because I realized, I'm like, yes, this is it. We're turning that corner.
Yeah, because you're getting a lot of emails of, when can we reschedule this? Can we schedule that? Like, people saying we want to book this for the fall. And it's like, it's tough right now because you have stuff that you have to reschedule too.
I will tell you that my life before this pandemic hit was unbelievable, was incredible. And I was doing things that are just amazing. And you know, that's what I built myself up to do. But on March 11th, I'm DJing the Sixers game against Detroit, and we knew this was starting to happen. And the 2 games before that, one a Flyers game and that Sixers game, I started to say to the people I work with, something's wrong. Look at everybody. People, the crowd is going down. People look worried. And the vice president came up to me that night and he goes, "We're done." And I was the first person that got told at Wells Fargo Center.
Wow.
I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "We're done. We're shutting down." I said, "Are you kidding?" And I never had my stomach feel when my stomach dropped. The hard part about that was I had to play the rest of the night and I couldn't tell nobody.
Jeez.
And it really hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, what next? Like, what? And from then, you know, March is our big month. I do all Flyers and Sixers games, and I do all concerts. Actually, after that Sixers game, I was supposed to DJ the Dan Shea concert, then the Billie Eilish concert. And then we were going to go right into Flyers and Sixers again, double straight through. And March is a big month. And then we go into playoffs with April and May, which are huge. So a lot got canceled. I would say between private events, sporting events, and concerts, I probably already canceled maybe 45 to 50 events.
Just for the month of March.
March and April.
March and April, right.
So I want you to touch on that, what you just said. You said that the vice president of the Wells Fargo Center came up to you, your stomach dropped, yet you still had to do the rest of the event.
Yeah.
I'm sure in your career, I mean, like you said, you have, you know, done stuff for Black Eyed Peas and the Beastie Boys, and you do the Flyers and the Sixers and all that. That's probably not the first time in your life or your career that you had a bad day or something happened and you still had to get up and bring it.
Well,
how do you do that?
It's called showmanship. It's called caring about the client that you're working for. It's called, well, I can give you a really, really, really extreme example right now. And Joel, you may know this, but last year I lost my sister, my mother, and my dog, and I'm a big pet lover.
Lots of pictures.
About 6 months. The day I lost my mom, I had to do a wedding that night.
Oh my God.
Now there's no turning away. There's no canceling. So I had to DJ a wedding on that night. And I did it. And it was phenomenal. It was incredible. And I took all the energy and everything that my mother taught me and how proud she was of me and the things I did. And that's what I made my energy.
Because that's what she would have wanted you to do, right? She would have wanted you to go out there and just make people happy.
Listen, as a business owner, and this is what this is about, we're speaking of, you know, you have to represent yourself every minute. So no matter what happens that day, no matter what you go through, your brand should always be at 100%. And I did it. And they gave me a 5-star review. I still talk to the bride and groom. They had no idea it happened. And it was a tremendous event. But at the end of the day, when I was breaking down, I looked down at my sheet And I smiled because I knew that's what my mother would have wanted.
How? Oh,
I love that, man.
That's probably the most extreme example that I can give. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, now is that something that you've from day one have you had to like work? Like, I know personally, I do like a lot of personal development, mindset work. I do a lot of stuff like that too over the years because I wasn't always the best at it. But like, have you done anything to help yourself get to that point, or did it just come naturally for you?
You know, we were recently talking about patience, and I think patience within yourself and building up who you are inside. I think, and being unselfish. Listen, things are going to happen to all of us through the years. Life is a timeline of things, of ups and downs. And I can tell you amazing, amazing positive things. And I can tell you challenges that I've been through as well. And I see this sometimes, and I think surrounding myself with some of the big people that I've worked with, I've worked with the Motley Crues, and I've worked with Kiss and just all these acts. But the one thing they can have the craziest reputations in the world, but I would sit down and speak with them and surrounding myself with people of that level. Every single one of those people that made it to that point got there for a reason.
Yep.
And I would always, always take that information that I got from them. I remember talking to Leonard Skinner, who we know, Sweet Home Alabama. Everybody knows the song.
Of course.
There's one surviving member named Artemis Pyle, who I've got to know very well. We did some shows together. We did some stuff together. And he's crazy. If anybody knows the story, back in 1977, they were on a plane that crashed. Mm-hmm. And he was on the plane with his band. The plane was leased from Aerosmith, and it just ran out of gas. And they crashed into a field. And he told me the whole story. And he told me how he endured this story and like how he came down. He grabbed the wheel. He saw it hit the trees. Next thing he knows, he's laying flat, and half the band is dead.
Oh my God.
I can only imagine.
He told me like just stuff like that, and hearing that story. And then you watch this guy, he's still going strong, and he's still playing songs. And he comes out of his North Carolina house, and he heads to California every week or Seattle and whatever. And he's playing, and you have to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, very relevant to right now. And that's what I told Joel when all this started, is that you can either let what's happening right now kill you and eat you alive. I said, but the people that are successful are going to be the ones that come out of this swinging, are going to come out of this on top. And you have to keep that mind. No matter what happens to you in life, you can either lay down and take it, or you can get better. You can let it shape you into a good human being.
I agree. And I think, you have to, I find myself sometimes looking at what other people are doing, which is not necessarily good.
Right. Yeah, it could be good or bad.
Yeah. And I don't agree with it, and that's fine. But I have a really good source of people around me that are extremely strong and very smart. And that and we all believe in the same things. And that's work hard and success. Party hard, but also work.
Yeah.
And I think you need to do both, because I think both of them will bring you to where you want to be in life.
Well, you talked about showmanship, and obviously I know what you do is music based, but we're comedy based. And I know just from following you and getting to know you so well that working at the Wells Fargo Center, you got to open up for Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yes, I did. Yeah,
now,
it was a great night.
Can you tell us about that? Like opening, they're not there. The crowd is not there for you, although you're good at what you do. So can you talk about one? I've never performed. You've obviously been doing a lot longer than I have, but I performed in maybe in front of like 1,000 people, maybe a little bit more. But to be in that many people at once and for them to be there for Sebastian, can you talk about the energy and maybe what your mindset is and what your game plan is to go out there and perform for them? Yeah.
I haven't opened up for too many comedians. He's one of the few.
Well, even the bands and stuff like that, or maybe what the difference is.
I'll talk about the comedian first, because I thought that was a very special night. And you guys being in the comedy business, I think it would be a good idea. So first of all, I'm a huge fan of his, and I went to go actually see him at Radio City in New York. I'm a big New York fan, and my wife and I just went to go see him. And back years ago, I got to meet him a few times and things like that. And this is when he was up and coming. But I love his energy. His energy is unbelievable. And he's somebody you could look at and say, wow, this guy, no matter, he can't fail because his energy is so positive. Yet he goes out there and he trashes Italian families and stuff like that. You're like, but it's funny.
Right.
So my whole thing is when I go into opening up for an act, I research them both personally and professionally, and I researched him. And I'll go on YouTube and I'll sit there for a day, all day, looking at things he said, things he has done, his life, his everything. So I build my whole playlist. I pre-pull it, and I get a lot of slack from DJs when I tell them I'm going to pull my playlist. They're like, "Yo, guy, you've been doing this 40 years, and you're pulling your playlist." I said, "Yeah, I still do, and I always do for every event I do." Because every night I play, I sound completely different no matter what. Now, the one thing I do at Wells Fargo Center, sometimes it can be like a side room pre-party. It could be main stage pre-party, or it could be anything like that, like a post or a pre. I was able to set up to the TVs that night. So when I play off my turntables, my custom turntables, which you guys probably heard about.
It's something. Every article about you mentions this 5,200 something. I forget tectonic table. Like you're famous for this.
I figure if you're going to play music, do it from style first of all. And I like to sit there with every time I watch a DJ with a toy controller. I say toy controller, it looks like they're Christmas morning opening up a Christmas present. You need turntables, and turntables need to be visible, and they need to be spoofed up. So I did that. And so when I did that, I could hook up my system into the Wells Fargo TVs all throughout the whole place. I was playing skits that he did when he first started out. I was playing little movie things that he did. And then I was playing some of the music that he likes. He's a big freestyle music lover. Which is like Stevie B and things like that, like 80s dance music.
So you were literally creating the laughter before the laughter started because you're like putting those in intermittently.
So I was doing showstoppers. So what we call them showstoppers. If you ever been out to Cancun, there's a place called Coco Bongo. Okay. And that is number one place for showstoppers. They don't just play music. They will play 2 songs and then they go into a Prince skit. And there's Prince this and Prince that, and Prince dancers come out and this and that. And then they'll go into a Beatles skit. And then they'll go into a Guns N' Roses skit. And you'll see Axl with the headband on. So it's complete 100% entertainment. So when I DJ a pre-show at Wells Fargo, like a Sebastian Maniscalco, I will do showstoppers in between. So I'll stop the music and go into a video. And then I'll pop out and do other things. Not just play music.
That's so cool.
And that probably really, spoke to him because he's like, this guy came in and plays stuff that I like. And music is very like uplifting and therapeutic for people. So before he's getting on stage to perform in front of tens of thousands of people, you're like speaking to his soul. Like that's got to not only like, yeah, it's cool for the audience, but for him personally, he's probably like, oh, and that's probably why people like you so much.
Sometimes they come out and sometimes they'll send their people out and they'll say, this guy's unbelievable. This guy's good. The Hugh Jackman thing was I bring that up a lot. And I've worked with almost every major act, but Hugh Jackman was a big surprise because it didn't come from Wells Fargo. It came from him. He hired me directly to open up for him directly. It had nothing to do with Wells Fargo Center. And that meant a lot to me. So his California agent, AEG, called me and they said they were interested in me doing it. And I said, I would be happy to do it. And boom, they hired me like that. So he wanted me, and he wanted me to play certain music, which was very difficult. But that was sort of cool when an artist hires you direct. And I've had that with Kiss and some other artists as well.
So why is that? I don't know much. I enjoy music. I listen to it, but you just said he wanted you to play certain music, and that can be kind of difficult. Why?
Yeah, he gave me a list.
But does that step on your artist toes? Is that what you're saying? Is that why it's difficult?
It does. So what I say to myself then, I say, well, what can I do to grab, Stevie Wonder, don't you worry about a thing. And then he wanted the remixed version, the new version of it. So I remixed and mashed it and did a premix of it and did that. So everything he asked me to do, I did 10 times more pre-production to it.
Wow. You really wanted to blow him away.
99% of my event work is done before the event.
Wow. Okay.
And Joel, as a comedian,
Yeah.
That's the funny part is people, I think Joel and I talk about that all the time. And that's kind of why we had the idea to start this is because that's actually, you just hit the nail on the head. Why we started it is everybody sees the success. They see this up here, but they don't see like the hustle and the grind and the coming up. And like they see Joel go out there on stage on a Friday night and they see people laugh and they're like, oh, Joel gets to drink a beer and have a good time. And they see you at like, you know, opening up for Hugh Jackman, Wells Fargo Center. Wow, look at him having fun. But they don't see the hours and the hours that goes into making that magic happen.
Even setting up all the equipment that day, like it takes, like you said, 2 hours was the limited time that you had for Gino's. You told us off the air because of the venue only gave you 2 hours, but probably most times you're there setting up 3, maybe 4 hours beforehand. It's a full work day.
I do so many different venues. I'm sponsored by Robert Gray and Men's Clothing. I do all their stores.
Okay.
But to get to those stores and set up sometimes could be a security hassle. I work with Gino's, as you know, Gino Steaks in Philadelphia, national icon Vento, as we all know.
Yep.
I DJ outside in the middle of the street. That can
be Sunday fun day, baby.
But you know, security-wise, being outside on the street is not easy. So you need people around you. You know, but there's that preparation. You have to be prepared. Same thing with Wells Fargo. Just getting into the building. You know, after the Ariana Grande concert overseas, when we had the bomb to go off, it got difficult. Obama, our previous president, head of security, runs security at Wells Fargo. That's how serious. That's how serious we take it.
Right.
So even myself being a resident DJ there for 10 years, it would be difficult to get in and out, depending on who you were in front of. That could, and the same could be for a private event. Or I work at Ronald McDonald House. I do all their charity events. You know, you're in Center City sometimes, and you have to make sure when you pull up, you know, if I pull up with a black vehicle, who is that? You got to talk to the police, come in and out. That's all part of preparation. You got to make sure you're prepared to handle that.
Do you have to have security clearances? Like, did you have to get like fingerprinted and you have to have those for all these different places, or?
And never enough, because every event is so different. It changes every event. So it's almost, you can't even keep up.
Well, that's like I was in the military and I have, you know, my military security clearance, and to volunteer at my child's school, I still had to get their security clearance. Yeah. I'm like, for the love of God, I'm like, here's my military ID. And they're like, yeah, no, we're going to need our security clearance. I'm like, oh my God.
And that's how it is. I've seen it. I've been to Madison Square Garden. That's a hard place.
The Garden.
Madison Square Garden. I just was backstage hanging out with Paul Stanley. He just gave me his guitar from the stage he played. Signed it for me. He said, Perry, come back. Go put it in the car and come back. Oh, I went to go put it in the car and come back. And I couldn't get back, and it didn't matter. So you're
like, I got Paul Stanley's guitar. Let me back in the building.
It's sitting right back there, actually, right there in the office.
Well, that's actually what's going to be my next question. You could literally turn in your house into like a museum, because you have so much memorabilia from over the years. I'm going to move
aside here a little bit, and I don't know if you guys can see anything back there, but it's this is the office.
Wow.
That doesn't look like wallpaper. That looks like the walls just covered in like memorabilia.
So basically, we're talking about collecting memorabilia from past shows and things like that. And I go back to years ago in the 90s, touring with the Beastie Boys, Black Eyed Peas, Grace Jones, all these artists back then. I remember even one time I was working with Sugar Hill Gang. If you guys remember the song Apache.
Yeah.
I was the guy DJing up on the stage with them and all that stuff. And like, I never got pictures. I just did it, rolled and partied. And that when you were younger, that's what you would do. But after a while, people started saying to me, don't you have anything like that? I said, no. So as I started doing shows, I started collecting things and asking for things. And if I had a picture, I would put it up. And I just built this office right before the pandemic hit, and it's surrounded with, I mean, you guys are always welcome to come see. Everybody is, and that's why it's hanging up.
All right, I'll see you later.
He's going to be at your door. Don't invite him over if you don't want to come over.
There's over 100 signed guitars. There's pictures. There's, I mean, all kinds of stuff. I got a picture of Vince Neil sitting up there with me and Axl Rose and Steven Adler, Calvin Harris. Just everybody.
I mean, I don't think you should have told people where you live. I mean, you have cameras and a security system. I mean, you have like quite the collection.
Yeah, I think by looking at me and already speaking with me, nobody's getting past me, as you could probably already tell.
Oh, yeah. Message sent.
Yeah, got it. Check.
Yeah,
Do not go near your house.
I don't think that anybody's getting past me, but I do welcome all my friends and associates and people I'm in the business with to definitely come and take a look. It's something to see. It's definitely it's all put up here for people to see, and it's appropriately placed. So I'm looking at a picture of Billy Joel's album right now, signed, and Meatloaf and Aerosmith.
Meatloaf. I had their tape. Loved it.
Cassette tape.
And I'm looking at pictures with me and Aerosmith, and he's probably the most fun person there is in the world to work with. Steven Tyler, he's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
that's
just to be up there with all those artists like that. So, I want to wrap up with a couple important questions. Two are your biggest success, which I'm sure it's really hard to pinpoint that with all that you've done. And then also your biggest learning experience. We started saying failure in the beginning, and someone corrected us and said they're not failures, they're learning experiences. So biggest success, biggest learning experience of your career.
Biggest success was going all in and saying, this is what I want to do. I've had ups and downs just like everybody else has. From 1981 to now 2020, this is my 40th year that I'm doing this.
Congrats.
As a DJ. Thank you. And I will tell you, if I had to change anything going back, it was the times that I pulled back and said wasn't that headstrong into going full force. My biggest success was going full force. Okay. Because if you're going to do something from a business standpoint and you believe in yourself, don't let nobody else tell you that you can't. And I remember, I'm not going to say who it is, but I've had people very close to me saying, there's no way at this age you're going to be a successful DJ.
Really?
And I, to that day, laugh in their ear every time I walk by them. And I'm proud of it. And because, I've worked hard, and it's very, very rare that you see a 53-year-old DJ.
I was going to say, you typically think DJ, you think of someone in their early 20s, probably, maybe 30.
You do, and a lot of times, and the one thing I will say, a lot of those guys right now that are really younger guys, I love and respect. There's some really good DJs out there. I get along with every single one of them. They look up to me. And a lot of them tell me that I'm the reason why they're DJing. I'm the reason why they started playing, that they would listen to me. And that makes me feel really good.
Just like that first DJ was for you, like he was for you. That's what you are for them. Like you're bringing up that next generation and you're showing them that it's a true art form. Like with all the digital platforms, a lot of people just think they can go and throw it together, but you're showing these guys that like you have to still put in the work.
Going back to earlier in the interview, when we just were speaking, I sat on that DJ's floor in his nightclub, and he gave me that opportunity. So just like that, I always carry that with me. So when I see these young guys that work, some of them work, there's some younger guys that work at Wells Fargo, that they're doing other stuff. And I always push them and always talk positive and keep doing what you're doing. Do what you love and always be professional. I try to, if anything, just give them advice. Yeah.
So I think that's great. That's one of the questions that we always ask people. And I think that's, for somebody who wants to be self-employed or get into working for themselves, like what piece of advice would you give them? And I think that's great advice.
Positivity. Don't do no drama with your competition. Work with your competition. Everybody has something to offer. Don't ever think somebody's better than anybody else, because there isn't. Everybody has different taste buds. And we can look at, you could say he's a great DJ, or he's a great comedian, or that's a great band. But everybody likes something different. Nobody's better than anybody else. So what you got to do, I think, what you have to do as your own brand is really reach out with an open mind and look at why those people like this guy or they like that guy, and work that into your mix. Don't ever turn your back on anybody else. When I see people always, oh, well, that DJ, he won this, he won that, and they're upset. That's not the way you want to be. You want to be positive and you want to be supportive. And if you look at every single person and artist that made it big in this world, they made it by being that way.
That's great. That's wonderful. So that's just, I think just the positive thinking. I love all that and embracing your competition, because there's a lot of haters out there.
Yeah.
A lot of haters, and it's just so toxic and negative.
It's nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah. It doesn't do well for you or the other people, or it's not good for anybody. So it was something that I started, and I think this is.
I can't wait to hear this.
I know. I'm excited. I just thought of it one day when I was on a run. I want people to pick a theme song.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had I know, right? I think it was on the list of questions that
this hits home more for him than anyone else.
That's why I'm so excited for this.
Yeah.
What would DJ Perry's theme song be?
I have my favorites, as we know, but I think
something probably rock mixed, rock and roll mixed in.
Rock and roll. I'm going to go with Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Because my job is to make everybody feel good.
I like that.
And
that's it.
I think I'm going to go, and I just love the way that song kicks in. Energy.
Yeah,
that's great. You have just been. I feel like I was sitting here like this the entire time. Like,
oh, this is amazing.
You're a wonderful storyteller. It sounds like you're just a wonderful human being. Gino and Joel both speak very highly of you, and we really appreciate you coming on. We hope the people who are listening or watching are inspired by what you've said. And I hope one day when this is all over that I will get to meet you. For EAF, you can check us out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. This is Joel Richardson, DJ Perry, and Deanna Kozak signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Love you.
Stay on. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Entrepreneurs. To stay up to date on future shows, follow Soul Joel TV on Facebook and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. See you next time, and always remember, respect the hustle.